Hello, and welcome to this episode of Embracing Cultures. Today, we are in the Peruvian embassy in Beijing to explore the often unexpected connections between China and Peru.
We will delve into the ways these two countries, though separated by oceans, have found common ground in culture, cuisine, technology, and ancient heritage.
Today, we are joined by Selena Zhou, Peru's Culture, Education, and Tourism Attaché in China.
And Mr. Luo Xun, professor at Tianjin University of Technology and co-director of Connected Universal Experiences Labs. Welcome.
And Luis Carlos, a Peruvian student who is studying at Beijing Foreign Studies University.
Welcome.
So I'd like to start by asking, you guys have all been to each other's respective home countries. When you first get off the plane on your first visit during that first while, what made an impression on you that was really surprising? What were some of the things you found surprising during that first visit?
You mean on our first visit to China?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that first caught my attention, because I come from a Chinese family. I was born and raised in Peru. I am part of the Peruvian diplomatic service. However, even though I already studied here, I did my bachelor here in China. 3 years ago, when I first came to China on my first diplomatic mission, one of the things that caught my attention was the deep interest that was in the Chinese government to cooperate with us, with South American countries, especially with Peru. For example, this year, because Peru is hosting APEC, we've been working very closely with the government of Chongqing, the government of Beijing, to promote not only Peruvian culture, because that's not the idea. The point of our cooperation with Chinese government is about friendship, is about bilateral relations, but most of all is about how our different civilizations, in spite of the geographical distance, there are many things that we have in common. Mm-hmm. And that's, I was really greatly surprised by how deeply, how the Chinese government wanted to connect with different people. Mm-hmm. So that was really nice.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Luo, how about you? You have been to Peru once, right?
Yes, several times. And what impressed me most during the first visit to Lima was a rich landscape. When you look out of the window of the airplane, that you see the mountains, and just right next to the mountain is the ocean. And you don't see this very often because in the Caribbean, normally near the coastline, you have like short, small hills rather than tall mountains. The Andean mountain, you don't see it very often in the Caribbean, but I guess on the Pacific side, that's more common. And that really impressed me because in China, one city is similar to that. That's the city of Qingdao, that you have the tall mountain Laoshan, and also you have the ocean, and that makes a spectacular view of the city. And Lima impressed me when I was still in the air. That I already get impressed by the view, and of course the warm hospitality, and also the feeling of somehow remotely separated but still culturally connected because of the food, and also because of a lot of people there have the Chinese descent. So then that really brings you a feeling of getting to a familiar place that you never visited before. So I would say it's a beautiful, it's a spectacular city with a lot of attraction of the going home feeling.
Mm-hmm. So although it's a faraway country, but it feels like it has this feeling of getting back to home.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was in the plane looking through the window, I realized how messy the city is.
Beijing.
Yeah, Beijing. And when I was in the airport is like a city. It's massive. It's really, really big. I got lost in the airport actually.
So one of the things I'm also curious about, when you look for these kind of cultural connections between China and Peru, one of the first words that jumps out again and again is 激发. this kind of fusion cuisine between Chinese and pure Peruvian cuisine. How would you describe tifa, and what would you say are some of your favorite dishes?
Yeah, sure. So, you know that some countries they learn to coexist with different cultures, but in the Peruvian case, we not only coexist, but we mostly embrace it. So we created a brand new identity. Chifa for us is not Chinese food anymore. It's part of what makes us Peruvians, and it's not just about the food. You know, chifa is a reflection of how the Chinese people who emigrated to Peru many years ago, they learned to adapt their own heritage with what they had at hand, with the ingredients they had at hand. They even shared it with the Peruvian locals. They didn't keep it to themselves like other immigrants. So that's how, in fact, that's how the word chifa came out, because they would yell out, 吃饭, like it's time to eat. And the Peruvians around would just hear chifa, and they say, oh, that's chifa then. And it actually went even beyond what's food. We even integrated most of the words into our Peruvian Spanish. For example, the word for ginger, we don't say jengibre, which is the actual Spanish word. We say guion, which is the Cantonese for jiang. We don't say soy sauce. We say sillao, which is the Cantonese for that word. So it's much, to us, it's our identity. It's not just food.
So along with the Chinese food, also come with this Chinese language dialect.
It's mostly about how the Peruvian openness has embraced Chinese culture and made it our own too.
And so when you went to Peru, did you try tifa? And then how would you compare it then to like the food you might have here or the pure Peruvian food when you ate it?
Yeah. So of course, Chifa is the restaurant, and arroz chaufa is the fried rice, and this gives you a lot of familiarity, that you feel that's a deep connection with Chinese culture, and I like it most. I like the seafood of Peru, because Peru produces the world's top quality fishes on its coastline. And I like most the arroz chaufa marisco, which is fried rice with seafood. And I like to have it in conjunction with ceviche marisco, which is seafood ceviche with the marinated seafood. And you can see that that is a very good blend. That's the same Peruvian fish, Peruvian seafood. You can consume it with rice, which is deeply connected to the Chinese culture and history, and also that's the ceviche is very, very typical. That I would say that's South America. So the same fish, but in two cultures, but seamlessly blended together, that gives you a very nice feeling. By the way, the arroz chaufa itself shows combined linguistically, because arroz is the Spanish word rice, but chaufa is the Cantonese for stirred rice.
Fried rice.
Yeah, similar is in the Kung Fu Panda movie. They say master shifu, and in the master and the shifu is actually they are like very naturally combined, but it's from two languages. So arroz chaufa, that yes, I enjoy that a lot. Chinese rice and the Peruvian coast seafood.
So Mr. Law, now could you tell us about this project that you're working on that you are planning to launch in Peru? And from what I understand, also there's a corollary to it where you're taking people from Peru and some other Latin American countries and then bring them to learn about Chinese technology. So you tell us a little bit more about exactly what this looks like.
Yeah, so during recent years, I really got fond of the rich culture and the rich natural resources in Latin America, and I made quite a few trips to Latin America, including today, that I have to excuse myself soon because I have a flight to Colombia for the United Nations Biodiversity Conference. Yeah, so what I felt that there are so much things that the stories to be told, that for the Chinese public to know more about the magic land and magic country of Peru. For example, we all know the animal llama, but I get to know that the fabric of vicunio, which is a different type of animal similar, looks similar to llama, but it's completely a different species of animal, and it produces the most precious fur in the world to make fabrics. So what I thought is basically with the development of digital technology, myself is a researcher on virtual reality and also metaverse. So we are going to build, using digital technology to build virtual museums, but show in a very highly realistic and interactive way of the Peruvian or more generally Latin America spectacular things, and that then we can enable more people to enjoy the culture, the local product, and interact with the people that in the digital world without actually having to catch a late flight or like rush on that. So we are building a virtual immersive museum for the coastal biodiversity of Peru, because right at near the capital city of Lima, you get seabirds, you get the fishes, you get the sea animals. That's really great, but very few people know about that, because there's ocean current meets there, warm ocean current and cold ocean current, and that creates the world's top biodiversity habitat. And we are doing the simulation and create a digital ocean part of the Peruvian coastal line near Lima, and people can know that. And at the same time, you can just teleport yourself to the historical sites like Machu Picchu. So that gives you a kind of a magic feeling, and we are working on that. So I hope that we can unveil that in the next 2 years.
We're also looking forward to that. And Mr. Luo, from your perspective, how can technology empower cultural and people-to-people exchanges?
Yeah, so technology is becoming more affordable these days, and that is very important, because in the early days, let's say 10, 20 years ago, technology is actually considered a luxury thing. You have to spend a lot of money to buy a computer, and that is not easily approachable by a mid-class family. I would say it's not probably worldwide. But now with the job of communication and with the computing devices, and the penetration of technology is actually very high. In quite a few Latin American countries, there are more phones than the population. That means that each person, on average, each person owns more than one mobile device. So that makes technology more accessible, and that is already creating deep transformation of how people communicate. Before, I think without the tools like video streaming and immersive technology, it is hard to imagine that you can watch how people live, how it's realistic in the daily life, how people are touring Machu Picchu, are touring the historical sites in Peru. But now, if you really fond of the culture, fond of the country, that you can easily find a lot of resources for that. Yeah. And for us is to keep improving the technology, in particular the digital technology part, that makes the immersion of the culture and the connection with the people more easier. And that is basically our objective that we work for.
So people can have a more immersive experience. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A special exhibition featuring Inca Andean civilization in Peru was held earlier this year in China's Chengdu. And how was this exhibition received among viewers?
Actually, this is not our first exhibition. I think 2-3 years ago, we did a similar exhibition. It was in a much smaller scale, and it was such a big success that the Chinese museums were so happy because they had such a big audience interested in Incan culture. And this time, we brought over 160 original artifacts from pre-Incan period of time. So like over 800 to 1,000 years old artifacts from the top 14 Peruvian museums. It was a really big scale event. We were very happy with the result. Our ambassador, His Excellency Marco Valareso, participated in the opening ceremony. And so far, it's been going great. We're hoping for next year, maybe next year or in 2 years. We are looking forward to bringing not Inca, but some gold artifacts from the coastal area, from the pre-Columbian times.
Yeah.
And to us, the main point of this exhibit is that our ambassador said, you know, you mentioned it at the beginning that Peru and China were very geographically distanced. However, there are many things that we have in common, from the textiles, the boneware, the ceramics, the techniques, the colors, the graphics. And as our ambassador said, it isn't about showing our differences, but mostly about showing our friends in China how much in common we have.
Right, and there are some fascinating similarities between ancient Peruvian and Chinese civilizations. For example, both the Inca culture in Peru and ancient China's Shu state culture had this, veneration for the sun and gold. I mean, can you share some of your thoughts on these parallels and what they might reveal about the broader patterns of human civilization? Mr. Luo, what is your take on this?
Yeah, so amazingly, we just talked about the Chifa and Rose Chaufa, but that's more recent. That's until after the 1800s. Amazingly, if we look at much more years ago, that these two countries still share a lot of similarity. I would say they all have civilization lines that are parallel. Yeah, so I'm from Sichuan. I was born and raised in Sichuan. So and the Inca exhibit is this year is in Chengdu, and in Chengdu we have this Sanxindui Museum and also the Jinshan Museum, and I can fully understand why the Inca exhibit attracts so many Chinese public to go there, because if you look at the elements of the sun, the elements of the bird, the element of making precious gold to make the handcrafts, and it's in very detail, and also some of the annotations of the early characters, and this share so much in common, and also share some values that are very similar to each other. Like I would say the sun is probably like universal, but the bird, it's not universal. And you see in the Inca culture, there's a lot of bird element, and in the Chinese culture, the ancient history also a lot of bird element. And another one is the patterns, the drawing patterns. A lot of the drawing patterns are also similar. So I would guess, yeah, it's coincidence, but that is. In Chinese, we say, 人之初性本善. When everybody, when the humankind first emerges, like they are all similar. I would say this is a perfect. It's not scientific, yes. but it actually kind of coincides with that philosophy that say people in their very early civilization stages that they share a lot of things in common naturally. Yeah.
Okay, so. Although geographically we're distant, but our human nature.
Yes, that's building our genes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for example, I believe in Jinsha they have this golden bird.
Yes.
Right? The Incas used to worship the condor, which is a bird of prey. And they used to think that the condor was a representation of freedom and ascension to the sun, the Inti, what we called our maximum god. And besides gold and birds, we also have many things in common, such as, for example, water. The Incas were master engineers when it came to aqueducts. And the same thing with the Chinese.
Yes,
yeah. Exactly, about how you used to control the flow of the river to prevent floods, to guarantee that there would always be an irrigation system for agriculture. Yes. The Incas had the same. In fact, the many terraces that you can find nowadays in Machu Picchu are actually a heritage from the Incas. The other thing that we have in common is our our fascination with the sun and the stars. In fact, within Machu Picchu, there is this place called Intihuatana, which is used to see the movement of the stars. And I believe that ancient Chinese people used to do the same.
Yeah, they do very similar things. They observe the stars, and they kind of like get the feeling of the great nature.
Yes.
Yeah.
They can tell the signs from heaven, like what's God's will.
I also believe that the Chinese people used to host these religious celebrations based on the time of the year for agriculture.
Yeah.
The ancient Peruvians, not just Incas, pre-Incan times as well, we used to host these really important ceremonial events to worship our gods and to beg for a good, a good harvest. So same as Chinese culture, many things in common actually.
Yeah.
We could go on and on, but
And people's longings are the same for a beautiful life, a peaceful world.
and that's really basic human nature.
Exactly. Yeah, human nature. I agree. I very much agree.
There's in Peru on the Andean zone. There's the women. Their traditional clothes are really like to a ethnic here in China, in the south, I guess.
Yunnan.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, yeah. It's really similar. It's like wow. They are really far away from each other, but they are like they are similarities in a lot of in their clothes. Yeah, that's really impressive.
Yeah, it's also part of human nature to live a colorful life. Maybe that can explain how it happens. Okay, Mr. Luo is going to catch a flight.
For having me, but I think I will continue my journey to explore the fantastic Latin America, and
You're going to Colombia,
I'm going to
right?
Colombia for the Biodiversity Conference, and also I think the APEC is going to be a great conference. I wish the APEC very successful venue for people all over the world to know more about Peru, and I wish more of my Chinese compatriots can get to know the country.
And really, thank you, Ms. Lu, for joining our discussion. And we really want to have you back on our show next time. Okay, please don't go away. And now we will enjoy a short video about Peru. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back. We now have a lively discussion on China-Peru cultural ties. And speaking of cross-cultural exchanges between China and Peru, the migration of about 100,000 Chinese to Peru starting in the mid-1800s is often seen as a starting point for cross-cultural exchanges between the two countries. So generally speaking, how has Chinese culture influenced Peruvian society?
How has Chinese culture not influenced Peruvian society? That's a real question. So when Chinese people migrated to Peru many hundred years, well, over 150 years ago, the beauty with the Chinese society is that they had no qualms about marrying with natives. So unlike, for example, it is often said that Japanese immigrants, they usually marry among themselves. It's a really close society, but in the case of Chinese, they married the locals. So we have a lot of really famous Peruvians that have direct Chinese ancestry. In fact, we usually say that around 10 to 12% of our natural population has a direct Chinese ancestry. We also have many artists. For example, Marcelo Wong is a really renowned Peruvian artist. He's Chinese descendant. Most of the Chinese migration happened from the areas of South China, so around Zhongshan, some from Shenzhen, a lot from Fujian. So we're really happy with that immigration. It has enriched our history, our food, our way of speaking, our way of making friends, our openness to foreign cultures.
Well, the biggest influence is obviously the chifa, and also the Chinatown. They're in Lima.
Very big Chinatown.
Yeah, in Lima. They're in the center of the city. There is a Chinatown which there's a lot of stores that sells original Chinese products. That is like they have a bit of China for showing up to the Peruvians. It's really impressive.
So not only the Chinese immigrants go there to buy things, but also local.
Yeah, it's a boom. It's a really big boom because it's always full of people buying those things.
So it's really popular.
It is, actually. It is.
And I heard that Chinese Spring Festival is widely celebrated in Peru. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
It's only in Lima or also in other cities?
Well, I'm from Lima. I didn't really leave outside of Lima, but I've heard from friends that, because Chinese immigration happened throughout all of Peru. It's not just in the capital. We have a lot of Peruvian descendants from Chinese ancestry, around 10% of our population. So in Lima, it's really common to see the dragon dance in the midst of Chinese festival. So yes, we celebrate Chinese New Year maybe more than Chinese people.
And I've seen photos of line dance mixed with Peruvian dances. Yes. Yeah, that's a very interesting creative blend.
There are many traditional Peruvian dances that are very typically Peruvian. They are Andean. However, as my friend mentioned before, there are many similarities with Chinese culture, from the clothing, the style. So since it's so similar, in Lima we have two schools that are mostly Chinese, and they usually teach the students Chinese dances and Peruvian dances. And when it comes to Spring Festival, they usually take their students to have a cultural festival. So that's why you can see the dragon dance followed by a really typical Peruvian dance. It's a really festive time for us.
And just like we discussed that Chinese immigrants played a foundational role in shaping many traditions in Peru and also in other Latin American countries, as are the descendants of Chinese immigrants well integrated into the Peruvian society?
Yes, of course. We are called Dusan, which comes from the Chinese 土生. So that makes a lot of sense.
So the descendants of the Chinese immigrants is now called 土生, 土生.
Dusan in Spanish. We even have a Dusan house, which is it was built with Chinese finance, but it was built as a symbol of the Chinese heritage integrated into Peruvian culture.
So also the descendants of those Chinese immigrants, they also maintain their connections to their heritage.
Yes, but it's really interesting because it's not that they are exclusively Chinese or that they exclusively have these Chinese customs, but they actually embrace it with Peruvian traditions, which is why we say that for us, Chinese descendants, they are not Chinese, they're not Peruvians, but they are a brand new identity. It's part of what makes us Peruvians. Even if you're a Peruvian that has absolutely nothing to do with Chinese culture, like our ambassador, for example, you still embrace Chinese food, you embrace Chinese Spring Festival, you love Chinese shows, you love the martial arts festivities. It's part of what we are, it's our identity.
So what we've been talking about here are a lot of similarities that even predate the immigration than those that are influenced, by this immigration. Now, kind of looking more at the current situation and then far into the future. How do you think then that, Peru and China's culture are going to continue to create new cultural connections amid globalization? For instance, I know that a growing number of people in Peru are learning Chinese, correct?
Yes.
And what do you think is kind of spurring that?
We have excellent relations with China. We have very friendly ties. I would say that we are at our best we've always been friendly, but we're at our very best now. So nowadays we are going to open the port of Shanghai, which is going to connect China with South America. It's a much faster route. It's going to let Chinese products come to South America 10 days earlier than previously with different routes. And with that, because of trade, a lot of Peruvians are very interested in learning Chinese. And likewise, many Chinese companies are very interested in having Peruvians who can speak Chinese and can help them with trade. So for example, through the embassy, we are hosting many cooperation events. We are trying to open a Luban Center, which is a center that's focused on specializing certain abilities for students. We are working on opening a Confucius Institute we have, I believe, 2 or 3 in Lima, but we're trying to open new Confucius Institutes in Cusco, for example, where we have Machu Picchu, where we're hoping to have more Chinese tourists. So, of course, we need Chinese-speaking people. We are looking forward to cooperating between universities. This year, we had the pleasure of having, I believe, over 16 Peruvian students come into China because the wife of President Xi Jinping in 2016, she gifted a school with Chinese classical instruments. And they practiced all these years and they came to China to perform. So that was a really nice experience. It's a cultural exchange that we were really touched by it. So hopefully we can continue working together in the future.
Louis, you've been learning Chinese. That's part of what you're doing also here in China now. What made you decide that you wanted to learn Chinese? Or what do you enjoy about learning Chinese in particular? And what would you say is maybe like your favorite Chinese a word or phrase?
Oh, because I am really interested in learning languages. So when I graduate from school, I told my mom that I want to keep learning languages. English or French or Portuguese, but my mom said, okay, maybe you should start learning Chinese. So, okay, why not? Why not? Okay, it's like, and my first class was like confusing. Was really confusing because,
I can imagine.
Yeah, Chinese and Spanish are completely different. It's not like English and Spanish because we share similarities, but not with Chinese. And I really enjoy learning Chinese, especially writing Chinese because it's really artistic. Yeah, writing Chinese, the characters are like really fun for me. And probably my favorite word might be my name.
What is your Chinese name?
Lu Yunshan.
Yunshan.
Yeah, the cloud and the mountain. And I really like the meaning of my name. So yeah, I really like my name in Chinese. Yeah,
It's a beautiful name.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and how is tourism taking shape between the two countries? For example, have you traveled to any other Chinese cities other than Beijing?
I haven't had the opportunity to go to other places here in China, but I have been exploring Beijing, and I was in the Summer Palace. It's a really beautiful place.
So which attraction impressed you the most in Beijing?
The nature.
The nature?
The nature in Beijing.
The nature, you mean the natural landscape and the city landscape in Beijing?
The mountains, the lakes. It's breathtaking.
Yeah. Do you have any plans of traveling to other places in China?
Yeah, I want to go to Shanghai.
Shanghai.
Shanghai, and of course, I haven't gone to the Great Wall yet. Yeah, yeah, no, it's yeah, but I want to go. I want to go to the Great Wall and Harbin.
Go during winter.
Yeah, I want to.
The ice and snow world, and
Yeah.
I strongly recommend that. And in China, we have a saying that if you haven't been to the Great Wall, you are not a hero. Visiting the Great Wall makes you a hero.
I have to go. Yeah.
So we at the embassy we're working really hard on promoting more Chinese tourism to Peru. We understand that it's a bit difficult because of the distance, the geographical distance, and the fact that one would have to take at least 2 days to arrive to Peru. Our ambassador is insisting on a direct flight from China to Peru. However, we are very happy to say that ever since the pandemic came to an end, we are slowly seeing the numbers rising of Chinese people interested in going to Peru. Nowadays, most of our visas are for trade. A lot of Chinese companies send their people overseas to see the South American market. However, we're very happy that when we talk with most of them, we say, oh, you went for business to Peru for a month. How was your experience? Well, the first thing that they mention is they love the Peruvian food, they love Peruvian landscapes, they love the Peruvian ambience, and then they tell us about their business. So we're really happy that one way or another, we're seeing at least a couple thousand Chinese going every month to Peru. That makes us very happy.
And how does the Peruvian embassy facilitate the cultural exchange programs that can foster deeper understanding between the two countries? Anything in place or planned for the future?
Oh yes, we actually have a lot of work on. For instance, we're working on opening more centers for studying Chinese in Peru, because we wish for our people to learn more of the Chinese culture. Likewise, we have this Andean exhibit with the museums and the archaeological pieces, of course. We are hoping to bring the gold artifacts from the coastal areas to China, because we want to let our Chinese friends to know that there is more than Incan culture. We have pre-Columbian times as well. We are also working a lot on musical exchanges. We had Peruvian students coming to China to practice Chinese instruments. Hopefully, we will give Peruvian instruments to students in China, and maybe they can go during APEC to Peru to practice. There is actually a lot on.
Yeah, that sounds a lot going on.
It's a lot of work, but in summary, our ambassador is he's really focused on bridging the differences and the distance between our two countries.
Yeah.
So it seems as if a lot of what we've been talking about today accords very well with what President Xi Jinping said when he said that civilizations have become richer and more colorful with exchanges and mutual learning. What do you think of this?
I actually have in mind one of the things that Minister Wang Yi said. We had the pleasure of having a meeting with Minister Wang Yi when our Minister of Foreign Affairs came to China during April. And one of the things he said that I still remember was that when he went to Greece to speak with the Greece Prime Minister about building this forum on ancient civilizations, the first country that he thought of inviting was Peru. That was a really touching moment, but it also brings to light the fact that through civilizations, through mutual cooperation, through mutual understanding, we can build a society that's prosperous for everybody. We can foster friendship, we can foster more trade, and it's actually really good for both parties. So we are hoping to continue our friendly relations with China.
So as human beings, I believe that we have more in common
than differences.
Okay, thank you so much for coming to the show. I think we really had a very thought-provoking discussion here today. Thank you so much for joining the program. Thank you, and hope you have a nice day here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.